You made it.
All right. Good evening. I'll bring this regular city council meeting to order. If we could please rise for the invocation by Swami Anjani Cirillo.
Namaste, council members, members of our community of Sebastian. Namaste is the divine light in me, honors the divine light in you. So with that in mind, I'd like to offer a prayer for common ground. Today, may I be open to others' ideas and beliefs, respectful of our differences, not threatened by them. May I grow in understanding of my own motives, knowing that people often act out of their own fears. May I be a force for replacing fear with insight, helping us all to be patient and kind as we talk. Strength, real strength, can always find compromise. Working together, may we find a common ground, enabling us to move forward with a shared purpose. May we see what is truly important and that which unites us, to focus on that, to banish roadblocks of ego and fear. Lord, today may we be open to others' ideas and beliefs. Namaste.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Mayor McPartlin.
Here.
Vice Mayor Adams.
Here.
Ms. Coy. Here. Mr. Hill.
Here.
Councilmember Gilmore has informed me he'll be out of town and not at tonight's meeting.
All right. I'd like to make that an unexcused absence. I know we had a lengthy discussion at our last council meeting, and I thought we had a consensus more than 2 excused absences. This would be the 4th in the last 10 meetings.
I would suggest that, called out of town to the golf course or to a meeting or family emergency. So I would say this is an unexcused absence.
If I can weigh in, I would rather it not be an unexcused absence, just for the reason that we don't know why he's not here. He's out of town, but we don't know any details, so I think it would be unfair to him to have it as unexcused if we don't know the details.
Mr. Adams, we had a really hard conversation about this at the last meeting, and because for several meetings prior to that, we had problems with people being absent and us not being able to get votes. And at the last meeting, we had a discussion on it. I would think that after that discussion, each and every one of us sitting here would be mindful of what was said about excused and not excused. I would be very, very happy to, I can't come because I'm ill. Called out of town is a little bit generic.
That's precisely the reason why I'm saying I don't think it is fair to mark it as an unexcused when we don't know the details. But I don't want to belabor the point.
You don't think he had an obligation? I don't want to argue with you about it, but I feel he had an obligation to let us know.
He has an obligation, but I don't know the details, so that's just my opinion.
I don't know the details, and that's my opinion to mark it unexcused, so
Mr.
it's
Hill, you
okay to
wanna weigh in?
differ.
Yeah, I'll just say that I don't know what his circumstances are, and I don't really think that it really makes that much of a difference. He's got 2 meetings left, so I think at this point there's really no sense in going that unexcused route. So I'd be
Okay.
just in favor of going forward along the excused and moving forward.
Sounds like the will of council.
All right. Brings us up to agenda modifications. I just want to add under consent agenda 12I, the Sebastian Police Department has requested a road closure for their Sebastian Community Night Out on October 4th. Any problem with that going on the consent agenda?
No, sir.
All right. And then under, we have proclamations, awards, brief announcements. Just a brief announcement again. It's about the Sebastian Police Department. They're having their community night out. It's an annual event for about prevention of crime, as well as there's many organizations and displays put on out there by the K-9 unit, by law enforcement, by the sheriff's office, and a lot of other organizations that strengthen our community will be out there. It's Tuesday, October 4th, from 5:30 to 7:30, and Mr. Griffin has confirmed it'll be perfect weather out there, and they will be having hot dogs and other, food for people to come on out. So, any other brief announcements?
Real quick one.
Yes.
I want to thank the whole city of Sebastian for last Thursday on the 22nd for the Patriot Honor Ride. It was a last-minute deal, and Colonel West was riding his bicycle from Maine to Key West. He stayed overnight in our town. We rallied to the cause to raise some money for scholarships for children of deceased and disabled veterans. My goal, because it was such a late date, was to raise $1,000. I was a horrific underachiever, and you guys are just so good out in the city. We raised almost $4,000 to give to Folds of Honor for the scholarship fund. So thank you to the businesses who stood out on the street and waved the flags and all the extra flags that were out that day. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for sending the word out to the business community. Thank you to all the residents who turned in checks. Thank you to Officer Parker for escorting him down US 1, the police department. And thank you for Public Works and the rec guys down in the park for setting it all up. It was a wonderful day.
I have to concur with you, and I think that the flag folding ceremony that they did down there with about a dozen people, I think that was very touching.
Unique.
Congratulations, Ms. Coy, that was well done.
Any other brief announcements? All right. I'll recess the city council meeting and reconvene as the Community Redevelopment Agency. Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Vice Mayor Adams,
Here.
Ms. Coy,
Here.
Mr. Hill,
Here.
Mayor McPartlin,
Here.
and Mr. Gilmore is absent.
Leads us up to approval of the June 22nd CRA minutes.
Move approval?
Second. Any further council discussion on that? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Ms. Coy,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adams.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Leads us up to conduct a public hearing on CRA budget for fiscal year 2017, CRA Resolution 16-01. You reading this, Mr. Ginsburg?
Yes, sir. Item 7C on your agenda is a resolution of the City of Sebastian Community Development Agency, the CRA, adopting a budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2016, and ending September 30, 2017, making findings, authorizing amendments, providing for an effective date. Public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of Resolution R-1601.
I'll second.
All right. Anyone from the public wish to speak on the CRA budget? Mr. Griffin, you have any input on it?
No, sir. Recommending approval. Mr. Kilgore, do you have any comments?
No, this is a state requirement. We do incorporate this into our overall city budget after approval, so no other concerns.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kilgore. Any further council discussion?
No, sir.
Ms. Williams, roll call, please.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Coy. Motion carries.
All right, that finishes that. We'll adjourn the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting and reconvene as the City Council. Brings us up to item 9, committee reports and appointments. Anybody have any committee reports? No? All right. Brings us up to public hearings. 10A, first final hearing on the millage for calendar year 2016 and fiscal year 2016-2017 budget. Mr. Ginsburg.
Yes, sir. You've adopted a tentative millage and a tentative budget. This hearing tonight is your opportunity to consider adopting a final millage resolution and a final budget. As with the first meeting, State law requires that the first substantive issue to be discussed shall be the percentage increase in millage over the rollback rate necessary to fund the budget, if any, and the specific purposes for which ad valorem tax revenues are being increased. The city manager will undertake to comply with that state requirement.
The proposed millage rate of 3.8556 mils, which is 5.06% higher than the computed rollback tax rate of 3.67 mils. This increase will help fund employee COLA, employee reduction in health insurance premiums, continued road paving, and repayment to the reserve fund from the voluntary early retirement program.
All right, thank you, Mr. Griffin. Do you have a budget overview for us, Mr. Kilgore?
Yes, we're going to be kind of brief tonight, since you've heard or seen
Sound.
most of this before. Oh, that one, okay. Okay, we are going to be kind of brief tonight. You've heard most of this before or seen the slides. The property values did increase this year over the $1 billion mark. New taxable value was $25 million of that, which is about the same as last year. Average reassessment increased 4.88%, but homestead properties only go up 0.73% because of the limitation on the CPI. Commercial and others on an average go up 4.88% on the assessments. I've done a quick chart here. This I had covered with you before about the differences between the 3.8556 millage and the rollback of 3.67. Also hit the one millage rate that was mentioned was 3.800. $100,000 property at a homestead at the 3.8556 would pay only $2.81 per year more in taxes over last year. $200,000 property would pay 5.63. Commercial would go up $18.82 at a $100,000 value, and at a $200,000 value, it would go up $37.63 for the year. We have summarized our total spending. A large part of the increase is because we've moved all our CRA type operating expenses, the landscaping and janitorial costs, those types of things, into the general fund. We've also transferred street lighting programs in the local option that were in the local option gas tax over to the general fund. So we can free up those sources of monies for the intent, more the intent of what they were designed to do. So we would have had a net budget increase, but even with those changes, we only have an increase of $33,831 over last year. Total revenues increased $416,000. Most of that was the difference in the ad valorem taxes. The amount of dollars over last year is $256,849. I thought people would want to see our reserve balances. We do have the $5 million currently. After we repay the voluntary early retirement program this coming year at the 3.8556 rate, we would add back the $371,000 that we had spent, bringing our balance up to $5,422,000. We're recommending the 3.8556 to lessen any impacts of something happening with the national elections that affects the economy, the DST, discretionary sales tax not being renewed, should there be a major storm event, and of course any other kind of unanticipated costs that catch us off guard that we haven't provided for in the budget numbers. So I would like to give Ed Herlihy, the chair of the Budget Committee, an opportunity here to do his PowerPoint as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kilgore.
Thank you, Ken. Evening, council members.
Evening.
I'll go through this quickly because you've seen it before, with a couple of emphases. Why does the Budget Committee recommend the 3.8556? Number one, growth. The city is growing. And with growth comes more request for services, requirement for services. The city's going forward, not backwards. We've been backwards. And if you look at some of the charts, we've gone through the recession. It's cost us dearly, and we're catching up. We're doing a very good job catching up. So we've got to anticipate the growth. And I say one thing about growth, 42 home building permits issued in the third quarter. Be interesting to see what the fourth quarter's like, because there are more homes sprouting up around here every day. Increased lagoon funding. Key thing here is the sewers. We've got to get the people who are on sewers east of the railroad tracks, on septic, we've got to get them into the sewer system. And if we can raise the amount that we give people, the incentive from $5,000 to $10,000, I think we'll get more people to make the conversion. Loss of DST funding. There hasn't been a lot of talk about this. This is an important thing. If perchance this gets turned down in November, and you haven't heard much, there hasn't been much in the paper, there's so much politics going on in the state and nationally, I think this has gotten overlooked. But if it gets turned down, we're going to have to be looking around for somewhere near $3 million. It's going to be difficult. Potential for the economic downturn, that's a toss-up. I'll give you that. But in the final analysis, the Budget Committee worked very hard and looked a long time and agreed with the staff ultimately on the 3.8556. And that's where we stand, our recommendation to you. Any questions? I'd be glad to answer.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Herlihy.
You're
And
welcome.
once again, thank you for you and the Budget Review Committee, all the time and effort that you've put into reviewing the budget and all the projects we're looking at. Any questions for Mr. Herlihy or Mr. Kilgore? No? Thank you. All right. At this time, I'll open a hearing for public comment on the millage, the budget, and the capital improvement program.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just before you do that, I'm going to read the items into the record. 10A, 6A in your agenda is resolution, proposed resolution R-1627, millage rate resolution. A resolution of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, adopting a millage rate of 3.8556 mills for calendar year 2016 and allocating same to the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2016 and ending September 30, 2017, providing for conflicts and providing for an effective date. B is proposed resolution R-1628, the budget for fiscal year 2016-2017. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, adopting the budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2016 and ending September 30, 2017, making appropriations for the payment of operating expenses, capital expenses, and for the principal and interest payments on the indebtedness of the city in the city's general fund, special revenue funds, debt service fund, capital improvement funds, golf course fund, airport fund, and building department fund, as provided for in Schedule A. Attached here too. Establishing the authority of the city manager to implement the budget, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date. And C is proposed resolution R-1629, 6-year capital improvement program. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, adopting a 6-year capital improvement program for fiscal years ending 2017 through 2022. Providing repeal of resolutions or parts of resolutions in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Public hearing on all of these.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ginsburg. This time I'll open for any public comment on the millage, the budget, and the capital improvement program. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Council? any
Mr. Mayor,
deliber-
Mr. Mayor, if I could?
Yes.
All right, so over the last several weeks and months, and several months, quite frankly, we've been working on this budget, and I've made it very clear that I would be opposed to any increase in the millage rate or in taxes. I know we're not talking about an increase in the millage rate, so I want to be clear that's not what we're discussing. But any increase in taxes, unless it's absolutely necessary. And I want to thank the Budget Committee and staff for putting together a real high-quality budget and doing their work. But over the last week or two, I've been doing an awful lot of listening and talking and reading and listening and reading and listening and listening and listening. And I've come up with a solution that I think is great for the city without raising taxes 1 cent. In fact, we can go back to our rollback rate, which is 3.6700, without having any effect on any public service or anything the staff has asked to provide as a service to the citizens this year. Now, Ms. Coy, I listened very intently to what you said last week, and I have to agree with you 100%. It's simple to just grab an arbitrary number out of the sky and say, I think we should just go to 3.8 and let staff figure out how to reduce the budget by $50,000. I will tell you that is, I mean, this isn't like talk radio or this is like real stuff where we have to do due diligence and we have to make sure that the services that we provide are intact. And we can do that. We can supply all of the funds to the Lagoon Fund. We can supply all of the funds to the increased funds to the roads. We can supply the CRA with everything they're asking for and not touch the operating budget that the city manager and the staff are asking for. We simply have to be open-minded to this crazy idea I'm about to throw out. And I'm glad Anjane was here with that wonderful prayer of listening and unity, because one of the items in here is a full payback to the general fund reserve of $371,000. Now or give or take a couple $100, I'm going to be speaking in thousands, so it's approximately $371,000. Now that $371,000 was borrowed from the general fund reserve last year in order to do the early retirement program that was supposed to save us money, but now we have to pay it back, and I agree we should pay it back. The League of Cities would say through their recommendations that we should carry approximately $3.3 million in our reserve fund. We as a council over the years have said that's not enough. We believe we should have more in that general fund reserve, and we've pretty much steadily kept it around $5.5 million. That gives us a lot of room should any potential disaster occur. And I think, quite frankly, that's helped us a lot in getting better bond ratings and finding cheaper money when we need it. So I'm in favor of $5.5 million or whatever staff recommends in the general fund reserve. I've got no quarrel with that. But what I do have a quarrel with, and what I've said over and over again, and I've heard every single person up here and anyone ever running for office, and I'm not trying to do that now, say, is that I will not raise taxes unless we've exhausted all other options. And I believe we have an option. I believe we can go to rollback, which is 3.670, and we can make a payment back to the general fund of approximately $194,000, which is a little more than half of what we borrowed last year. Then that $194,000 will already be a factor in next year's evaluations and state rollback rate. So that money will already be factored into our budget where we could make the remainder of that payment. So I agree we should carry as large a reserve as we possibly can within reason. I agree that staff has put together a good budget that's been combed over time and time again by BudCom, and they have done a fantastic job for us. But I also believe that we do not have to increase taxes, not 1 cent. And if we don't have to, I think it's responsible to not do it. We're still doing our roads. We're still doing our lagoon fund. The only thing we're doing is we're saying we're going to pay that little loan off in 2 years rather than 1. So I would recommend, and I'm not going to beat this to death. I've made statements over and over again about my feelings on this. I will not beat this to death, but my recommendation is that we set the millage rate at 3.6700, which would be the state recommended rollback rate. We thank staff for providing us with a wonderful budget, and we go forward and provide a great service to the citizens of this community.
Thank you. Any other?
Why are you looking at me?
I am looking at you, Amy.
Thank you for having a plan, Mr. Hill. I appreciate that. What is our reserve right now?
5.1, roughly.
We're over 5,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
and that's after, okay. So when we borrowed from that, we were at like 5.5.
5.4.
5.4.
Yes.
I'm thinking hard about this. I'm thinking.
Do you mind if I interject something?
Go ahead. Yeah, I want to hear your opinion.
I want to try to take the pressure off Mr. Kilgore and Mr. Hurley and the BudCom Budget Committee, because collectively, they've worked pretty hard since February on this. And two of the drivers of this budget, I kind of take responsibility for, and I emphasize this with Ken Kilgore, that this is where I wanted to, before we did a lot of other things, that we had to take care of two things. We had to because I kind of had a covenant with the council that when I introduced the voluntary early retirement program, I said that we would pay this money back to reserves in the next budget year. So I kind of made that promise to you. So that was number one. I said, Ken, that's the first thing we have to do. We have to provide for that, or that's what I want to see provided for. Number two, cost of living adjustment for the employees. Since we are now in a uptick economically with revenues, so it's totally justified because of some of the sacrifices the employees have made, especially during the Great Recession, that it was totally appropriate that we pursue that cost of living adjustment for the employees. And actually, there was a subset, number 3, that really Ken and Cynthia Watson got into during contract negotiations. To their credit, they identified healthcare premium issues with some of our employees, and they really introduced the program to try to reduce those things, especially for those young families, which they did in this budget, so I commend them for that. So really, those two main things, the cost of living adjustment and the repayment of the voluntary early retirement program borrowing that I did from the reserves, were most important to me. Obviously, the council sets the millage. The council approves the budget. I think it's a strong budget, and it fulfills paying the reserves back all at once. But I would support a 3.67 with the caveat that you can hold it over my head to make sure we pay that other half back. Well, it would be the payment that we would make to reserves this year would be $195,133 by my calculations, plus or minus, and then the payment next year to reserves would be $176,414, which would add up to the $371,547. Hope that I wasn't speaking too fast on that. So that's kind of my position.
Here's the way I look at it. You know, for the average homeowner, I consider myself the average homeowner. I looked at it with going to 3.8556. I'm looking at paying less than $3 a year would be the increase of my taxes. So you're talking a quarter a month, 25 cents a month to go forward. We can talk about paying back half that money this year. Next year, we're going to pay the other half. Well, what happens if something occurs in that year's time frame, and we can't. Then we kick that can further down the road. The composition of this council is going to change dramatically between now and next year. They're probably not going to remember maybe the promise. We always blame you, Mr. Griffin, when something goes wrong with the budget. But there's still a lot of unknowns that are out there that we have no control over looking forward. All aboard Florida, anything additional going on with the lagoon, the CAVCOR project down there. So those are a lot of unknowns that we don't know about. So I fully support the millage rate of 3.8556, and I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'm going to second your motion, Mr. Mayor, and may I have the floor?
Yes, ma'am.
Here's the deal. I get it. I get what you're asking. And we could. But we have been on such a shoestring budget for the last, since 2008, and even before that. If you look at the history, gosh darn it, Mr. Kilgore, I forgot my hand. Did you bring that handy dandy little sheet? I mean, we have cut and cut and cut. There's no doubt. We have made Mr. Kilgore and the city managers do their job. And the budget committee, my gosh, what a great job they've done. And we have towed the line. As we are starting to rise up, my house, I'm an average homeowner. I got a nice little house over just off of Easy Street. My house valuation over the last, since 2006 or so, when it started tanking, well, I bought the house after the hurricane, so right after that, stuff started going down. I paid a lot of money for that house right after Francis and Jean. Houses were premium price. So I paid a really high price, and I'm going to be underwater forever. But the value of my home has consistently declined to, it's shameful. I called the tax assessor's office one year, and you know me, I'm yelling at him going, what are you doing to the value of my property? Well, you know, the essence of it is I'm going to be paying less taxes. But my taxes now can only go up by 3%. Or the valuation can only go up by 3% while I'm owning that home, which means the city can only get a little itty bitty back. It certainly took away more than 3% every year when the valuation of my home went down. We lost valuation. My taxes went way down, and most people in Sebastian did. So we have consistently been losing money, and still trying to provide services. Growth, residential growth, does not pay for itself. We will always need more money to support, I know this is hard for some people to comprehend, but we're a bedroom community, very little business. So when we start having growth, it's in residences. We're having a little bit of an uptick in commercial properties, but not like Vero Beach and other major centers. We never will have that. We're a residential community, and we kind of like it like that. That's what we love about being here. So you have to understand that $2.81 for most people who have just the average house, a nice home in Sebastian, even if it was a $200,000 valued home that you're paying taxes on, that's less than $6 a year, 50 cents a month. I really, you know, when we listened to someone say last meeting that the handicap playground, our playground out here is going to be I didn't know that we're losing that playground when we build the new support area. That's horrible. We need to replace it. It's the only one we have, and that's not in our budget. But it's something that we might be able to do and find a new spot. But if we slash ourselves to the bones again, we're not going to be able to do that. We had a little glitch at CAVCOR, and we don't know. well, maybe we do. I didn't read my email after 3 this afternoon, so I'm not sure what anything might have come in, but there may be some extra expenses that we don't know about. We don't know what we don't know, and I broke my crystal ball a long time ago. So I know I'm long-winded, but I feel I owe Mr. Hill my explanation of why I can't support that. We have just slit our wrists and cut and cut and cut for so long that it's time now. We're not asking for the world. We're not asking to throw the money away. $2.81 for most people is not going to hurt them. A year, not a month, not a day. $2.81. That's where I'm at.
Mr. Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the city manager believes that we can make this change and still be able to provide the services to our citizens that they require, I'm inclined to go with his thinking. I trust him, I trust his staff. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Any further council discussion?
One addition. We had a budget committee who met over and over and over and over and over. And we trust them every year to provide us with guidelines. I would like to follow their recommendations. We haven't been doing a good job of following the recommendations of our committees of late. And they worked really hard. So I think that should be taken into consideration, is that they thought this was the best thing for the city of Sebastian.
And they were unanimous as well in that.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I mean, I can make a statement now, or we can take a vote, and then I'll make a statement afterwards.
Make a statement now, go ahead.
It's going to be the same statement. I agree with everything that has been said. The increase is very small for the average homeowner. Ultimately, the businesses and those who aren't homesteaders are going to have to basically pay for it. But the bottom line is that we're not asking for any cuts. In fact, the reason the city manager and staff and BudCom put together the budget that they did and worked so hard to get it to where it is, the reason there's an increase in here is due to the payback to the general fund reserve. The general fund reserve, which is $5.1 million. So we're not asking to cut out anything at all, just simply not raise taxes. And the problem with taxes in government is that when we do it this year and we make that entire $371,000 this year to the general fund, which is a tax increase, let's be clear, it's a tax increase simply to increase the reserve. That's what the increase is for, because the tax increase isn't for providing more services or for building more parks or for providing for better roads or even doing more for the lagoon. The tax increase that we're talking about is 100% simply for going into the reserve fund, which is already $5.1 million. So I will not support it because it's easy and fun to say things like, I'm only going to be a quarter or 50 cents, and it's correct. You're absolutely correct this year, but in 10 years, there's a thing called budget creep, and these things get out of control. I don't think you guys are like that. I don't think you're looking for that. I think you're looking at a recommendation that's been provided by staff and a hardworking BudCom, and I understand the desire to go with that recommendation. However, I will say that if this council increases taxes this year, it's 100% a tax increase to go to the general fund reserve, which is already $5.1 million.
To pay back what we borrowed last year. We borrowed from the reserve. We told people last year we'd pay it back. So are we going to honor our promises, or are we just going to say, we don't need to do what we say we're going to do.
I
And
would argue
yes,
that we're millions behind in our roads. We kick the can down the road for our repavement and maintenance of our roads, that we are trying to play catch-up at this time. And no, I would say is if you want to go with that, let's not pay the money back and put that whole money into the roads. There's a lot of people around town that got roads that are crumbling, and we have put off the maintenance of those for so long. And just to say, yes, it's an increase in taxes, and it's a quarter a month for the average homeowner. The services that you receive in Sebastian, I think, are very good. And like Ms. Coy alluded to, the lean times. We had employee furloughs for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. Our computer system almost completely broke. We had to put so much money into it in the past year because we put that off for so long. We almost had like a third world kind of computer system here in City Hall. So, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, Ms. Williams.
This is for 3.8556, correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adams,
No.
Ms. Coy,
yes,
Mr. Hill.
No.
Motion fails. Who's that?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to set the millage rate at 3.6700. Rollback rate.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Mayor McPartlin,
No.
Vice Mayor Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Coy,
oh, surprise, no.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
There we are again.
Motion fails.
So I guess we'll come back next meeting.
No, another motion is in order.
No? I'll make a motion to make the millage rate 3.8 and pay back half the money. That was borrowed from last year.
Swami Anjan, you said to compromise.
Well, I would just say that if we did that, then we would have an excess amount of money, because my motion paid back more than half the amount of money. So if we
Your
went with
motion failed, my motion failed. We got to move on now.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm saying that if we make it 3.8 and pay back half the money, then we have more money than is in the budget, so.
The additional money could go towards the roads,
Fair
because the
enough.
roads could always use it.
It can sit in the emergency reserves for our emergencies
Second.
that we don't even know are out there. All this hacking stuff, doesn't anybody care about that? I mean, when you said computer, I said, oh my God, I forgot all about that. Stuff's getting hacked left and right.
I got a second from Mr. Adams on the 3.8, paying back half the money that was borrowed last year. Any further council discussion? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Vice Mayor Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Coy,
Compromise, yes.
Mr. Hill,
No.
Mayor McPartlin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, that brings us up to adopt resolution R16-28, the budget for the fiscal year 2016-2017. I make a motion to approve it.
Second? Okay.
All right, any further council discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
We got to change some numbers in there?
well, you did, when you approved the previous resolution, you indicated that there would be an amendment to the budget to pay back half the amount of the borrowed money from reserve. If you want to follow through on that, you need to make an amendment to that effect to this agenda item.
So moved.
So seconded.
Any further council discussion? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Ms. Coy,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, leads us up to adopt resolution R-16-29, approval of the 6-year capital improvement program. I make a motion to approve that.
Second?
Any further council discussion?
No, sir.
Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Coy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Brings us up to item 10B, the second reading and public hearing of ordinance number O-16-07, Police Officers Retirement System. Mr. Ginsburg.
Before we leave the budget and millage resolutions, I would like the manager or the finance director to compute the percentage increase over the rollback rate that was involved in your approval of 3.8 mils and announce that publicly.
Get that calculator out, Ted.
It's got it from
Make sure that Mr. Kilgore checks your math, Mr. Griffin.
0.8. Okay, so the millage rate of 3.80 mils is 3.42% higher than the computed rollback tax rate of 3.67 mils.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Okay,
and
are
then-
we ready now for,
And then we're paying back half of the money we borrowed last year.
yes,
And then that addition, whatever's that in-between money is gonna go towards roads, or if you have another project that I think is vital to us.
Stormwater, roads and stormwater.
So that means that 185,773.5 will get paid back to the reserve fund on October 1st.
Correct. And then whatever's in between or left over goes towards roads.
That would be another 185,773.50.
And we
Exactly
will
half.
put that in next year's budget to pay the rest back.
Correct. All right. Does that satisfy everything, Mr. Ginsburg?
yes, sir.
All right. So it leads us up to the second reading.
Yes, we have a second reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance O-1607. That is an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida, amending Chapter 58, Law Enforcement, Article 3, Police Officers Retirement System of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Sebastian, amending Section 5846, Definitions, by amending the definitions of actuarial equivalent, credited service, and spouse, amending Section 5849, Finances and Fund Management, amending Section 5850, Contributions, amending Section 5851, Benefit Amounts and Eligibility, amending Section 58-60, Maximum Pension, adding Section 5870, Supplemental Benefit Component for Special Benefits, Chapter 185, Share Accounts, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. Public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of ordinance number O-16-07, Police Officers Retirement System.
Second. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter? Any further council discussion? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Mayor McPartlin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Coy?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Leads us up. We have no unfinished business. Leads us up to item 12, the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
With the addition of the 12I, the road
With-
closure
Yes,
for the...
sir.
Okay. Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Mayor McPartlin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Coy?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is it me, or was consent agenda way up on this list? It's weird? Okay,
Well, we had the CRA before,
okay.
so...
Consent is usually the first thing on the...
Oh,
Yeah,
just wanted to
Okay.
see if you were paying attention. That's all.
all right, I'm
All
good.
right, that leads us up to public input. At this time, any member from the public wish to speak about any matter not already on the agenda? Yes, ma'am. If you could come up and state your name and where you live for the record.
My name is Karen Palin, and I live at 106 Arrigo Street in Sebastian. So I wanted to make sure that the budget for 2016-2017 includes the renovations of Friendship Park and the establishment of a pickleball facility, right?
Yes.
And I wanted to thank each and every one of you for making this in Sebastian and being able to bring such a wonderful sport to all of our residents here. It's become a really wonderful thing that's taking off and getting people out and about and increasing bonding in communities, and it's really important. So I've been talking with different paddle companies, and they were so excited to promote the sport as well, and they sent you guys gifts. Would it be okay if I...
Under $100?
I'm sorry?
Is it under $100?
Yes, they're just
No.
paddles. If you look them up, they're all under $100, paddles and balls, because the best thing that we could do is to support is for you guys to actually come to the courts and start playing and learning it. Monday through Friday at Schumann at 6 p.m. is when we're playing right now, but soon we'll be able to have our own place where we can play in the morning and we can play in the evening. So for that, I'd like to present you with these gifts.
Mr. City Attorney, can we have them?
Less than 25, shouldn't it?
Yes.
Are we allowed to have them? Thank you.
Okay. So this is
I
from-
really wanted one.
You're just not allowed to paddle each other. Thank you.
Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Oh, yes. Ah, right. Yeah. I'm ready,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Right, well, thank you very much. It's not often anybody comes bearing gifts for us. So, all right. Are you done, ma'am? All right.
Just want to say, pickleball is a little bit different because it becomes more of a family. Everybody just plays together and enjoys each other, and it builds camaraderie, which is kind of like what is showing you here as well. But thank you very much. How do I find out how else to stay atop of this project so we can,
Contact the city manager, that gentleman right over there.
and then just keep on coming to the meetings and,
We always encourage everybody to come to the meetings. You can watch them online,
I do.
but they're better off live.
okay, great.
So,
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? All right. Brings us up to new business. Authorize the city manager to execute the First Amendment to the agreement between International Golf Maintenance and the city. Mr. Griffin.
Yes, sir. The new golf course storage building has received its certificate of occupancy, and we are adding a few things after the fact to enhance the building, some more concrete work that the city's undertaking along with asphalt of the surrounding area. Once all that's complete, we will effect a move for IGM from the about 40-year-old building that they now occupy on Airport Drive East over to the new building. Initially, when we got into this project, we were going to demolish that building, the old building, and preserve the area, reclaim it, get it set up for economic development. What we have collectively decided to do, we're going to keep that building for storage, some public works equipment storage, and once we get IGM moved over to the new building. IGM being in that new building, we want to make sure that they know what their responsibilities are with regard to keeping the place, maintaining the place, keeping it in a condition that we're going to require. So this modification of the agreement is all about that, how they are going to take care of the new building and the surrounding environment. So we're recommending approval.
So moved. All right.
Second.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Any further council discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, please.
Yes.
Joe, I was glad to see this on the agenda. You know, I was out inspecting the building today. It was from the golf course, I'm just saying, you know, so I did get to get a look at it when I was playing up number 7 and 8 there. I'm very glad to see this on there because I've been to hundreds and hundreds of these facilities, and I see just how quickly a new facility turns into a dump. Because when someone has a mower that stops running properly, they just drag it to one side of the lot and they just leave it sitting there. And whatever it does, drips oil, drains gas, whatever it does, it becomes a dump pile. And that is absolutely not an area that we could have something like that happen. It's a beautiful building and a beautiful location, and I'm sure they're going to take good care of it, and I'm sure Greg's going to stay on top of it to make sure it doesn't become a dump. But I've seen mowers drive through walls and mowers drive through doors, and these buildings take a beating, and they're not kept up, and the break rooms get dirty, and the bathrooms get nasty, and I'm glad to see that you've put this in place so that that won't happen. So here, and good job on that. I was concerned about that when I knew that they were close to getting the CO.
The brainchild of this was really our airport director, Scott Baker. He brought this to my attention, and he drew this up. So the credit goes to him on this. But yes, sir, I agree. Thank you very much, and we'll be keeping a close watch. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further council discussion on this matter? Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Vice Mayor Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Coy. Yes. Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we'll recess the city council meeting and convene as the Board of Adjustment. Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Ms. Coy,
Here.
Mr. Hill,
Here.
Mayor McPartlin,
Here.
Vice Mayor Adams,
Here.
and Mr. Gilmore is not present.
And that leads us up to approval of minutes from August 10th.
Move approval?
Second.
All right, roll call, Ms. Williams.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Coy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so that leads us up to a quasi-judicial hearing. So I'll open this hearing. Mr. Ginsburg, for the first one here, the Surge Pool Enclosure.
Yes, sir. The address of this request for a variance is 100 Port Royal Court. Legal description is Lot 351, Sebastian River Landing Subdivision Phase 2. Owner is Charles Surge, trustee for the benefit of Kevin Healy Trust. This is a request for a variance from Section 54-2-7.5B1A of the Sebastian Land Development Code to allow a portion of a screened pool enclosure to be 3.5 feet from the rear property line, whereas the code requires such structures to be 10 feet from the rear property line.
Council, any ex parte communication to disclose? No. No? All right. Ms. Williams, will you swear in everybody who intends to provide any testimony on this matter?
Why don't you stand?
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representation which you are about to give or present in this public hearing will be truthful and accurate?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. And so the applicant, do you wish to make a presentation, sir? You just state your name and your address for the record, please.
I'm not the applicant, sir.
Okay.
My name is James Pumphrey. I am
Are you the agent?
the president of the HOA.
Oops. Well, hello again.
Yeah, now is not the time.
Right.
You'll be called up.
All right, let me see. Barbara, how long I gotta wait? They're back up? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, is the applicant or their agent is not here tonight? Mr. Griffin?
Is Mr. Surge here? The applicant is here.
All right. Do you wish to make a presentation or anything, sir?
He may need to get sworn in too, Jim.
Right.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representation which you are about to give or present during this public hearing will be truthful and accurate?
You state your name and your address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Charles R. Surge. I am the trustee for Kevin Healy Supplemental Needs Account, which is my grandson. We are asking for a variance, not for the pool itself, but for the screen room to be within the 10-foot rear yard variance. The rear yard adjacents the Sebastian River Preserve, so there is no neighbor to the rear of the house that can complain about it. On the west side of the property is another 10-foot easement strip owned by the homeowners association. So there's no reason for them to complain about it, because no one is living there. So there is no reason to withhold a variance because of neighbors' complaints. The pool is needed for my grandson, who has cerebral palsy and is disabled in a wheelchair. His only means of recreation is in the pool. He cannot use the HOA pool because he has no way of getting in and out of the pool. He's totally incapacitated. With the pool, we are installing a lift, which will be permanently installed in the concrete, and it has a 7-foot swing, so he can transfer from his wheelchair into the lift and be put into the pool for exercise. Coming out of the pool, he will be lifted out, swung to the side, and put back in his wheelchair. I think we answered all the questions that were given to us. And I have nothing else to say, except thank you if I get the variance.
Thank you, Mr. Surge. Counsel, any questions for Mr. Surge? No? All right.
Were there other choices for lifts, or what made you choose this particular lift? Were there any other choices?
No, there was not. This was the lift that was recommended to us from the doctors to get him in and out.
Okay.
And as far as the location, to get the 7-foot swing, there's only one location.
Okay.
Definitely takes up a lot of room. I mean, the chairs that I have seen have all basically been the same kind of chair. It just takes up a lot of room.
It's a lot of
Because it
room.
has to have that swing to get him in and out of the pool.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
Any other question for Mr. Sturge? No. All right, you can be seated, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question for you, and I don't know if it's appropriate, and I would ask the city attorney if it's appropriate. I would like to have about 30 seconds to caucus with the city attorney in private. Is that appropriate?
I don't.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a problem.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Ms. Bosworth, your presentation for us?
Yes, this is a request, and I want to emphasize a variance from the Sebastian Land Development Code. This is, for our code, we have pools are required to, the rear setback for this subdivision is 20 feet. Our code does allow an encroachment of a screen enclosure up to 10 feet. They have, based on the design of their pool, they are requesting a variance of 6.5 feet for the screen enclosure to be 3.5 feet from the rear property line. The Land Development Code requires the Board of Adjustment to review some board criteria, and we have, that is on your checklist from circle page 224. We've reviewed, staff has reviewed that on how we feel if the applicant has met those criteria. Existence of special conditions, it was the requirement of the lift, or the request for the lift, does put a little bit of additional design on the pool. Because this property, if you notice on page 229, the survey, there is a covered patio that is going to remain, and I believe that's kind of the crux of the matter of why they need this variance, to be able to still have that 7-foot radius and still meet that covered patio. It could be moved to the other side. I know it's the deep side, the depth of the pool. You're going to want that lift to go in on the shallow side. But I believe that is the criteria, the reason why they're requesting this variance. The conditions are not created by the applicant. It is a specific type of lift that is needed for the handicapped and the disabilities. Special privileges we felt were not conferred, as we did have a previous variance for an aquatic therapy type of pool. I mean, about 7-8 years ago, it wasn't to the side setback, but we have granted a variance for this particular same reason. The hardship, I don't think was created by the applicant. Only the minimum variance is granted. There may be an additional or a substitute design for the pool. Without that coming from the pool contractor, staff wasn't able to see if this was the only place for the lift. That could be a consideration. We also feel that because it is adjacent to the preserve that is owned by the HOA and a landscaping tract, that there is only one other adjacent property to the west of them that may be affected by this, but the side setback is not being requested for any type of variance, so it would still be the same distance from that home. This is not a use-related variance, and there's no time limit. With our consideration of what we had from the contractor, the pool contractor, we felt they did meet the requirements and recommend approval at this time for the variance.
All right. Did we meet our requirements of notifying any neighbors, everybody we needed to?
Yes, there was about 35 notices that went out. It actually crept into the Phase 1 subdivision and anybody around that, so there has been letters notified, and the HOA received a letter also.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Council, any questions for staff? All right.
Interested to hear what the HOA
All right,
representative.
so no questions for Mr. Surge or Ms. Bosworth? Okay. At this time, I'll open the floor for anyone in favor of the request. Okay. Now I'll open the floor for anyone opposing the request. Sir, if you could just state your name and where you live, please.
My name is James Pumphrey. I live at 122 Salazar Lane. I am the HOA president. We have never allowed any encroachment on the 10-foot setback lines. And as far as the HOA stands, we will be declining this pool to be put in. Because we have not allowed any encroachment on that 10-foot setback line. Also, there are other issues with that area, the preserve, that are in litigations at this time, so I cannot speak about them. But it can cause damages where there's already damages. So we ask that the council deny the encroachment on that setback.
Let me get a question. Has
Yes,
the HOA considered putting in one of these seats that's ADA compliant for disabled people at the pool. They have.
We have not, but that is something that I can definitely bring to the board. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else opposing this request? All right, Mr. Surge, you want to sum anything up, or you're good? Ready for us to vote? Are you good, or you want to say anything further, sir? All right.
Can
Thank
I,
you. All right.
As far as the HOA having objections to the pool and the location, we're asking for a variance. If anyone else wants to have that same variance, they have to come to the board, and they are justified, yes or no, on certain recommendations from the board as to what they can do and what they can't do. So right now, I don't think that the objection from the HOA has any standpoint. There's nobody in the backyard. It's the preserve area. We're not encroaching on the preserve area. And he has pools all over the community. Because of a backyard neighbor, he has to stay away. But in this particular case, it's a different ballgame completely. And I think that the Planning Commission has gone through all of the recommendations that they think they should have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
I've got a question for Dory.
Go ahead.
Boy, I'm glad we still have a couple people who've been here a while. Sebastian River Landings, Phase 1 and 2. Phase 2, which phase did we have to grant the entire thing height waivers? Wasn't that Sebastian River Landing for their building, some of their buildings?
Phase 2.
Phase 2.
But they did not get it, so they do have to meet the required 25 feet height.
So, okay, so we had to grant, we as a board were sitting up here, and we normally, we do this as on an individual basis. We granted you waivers of our rules because of some errors that were made, no fault of the city's, but we gave you special permission to build homes higher than normal that had already been built, right? Is that correct? They were up there already.
No, what it was is in Phase 1, there was a model home. Phase 1, because of the surrounding properties, is allowed to build 35 feet. The model was for the builder in Phase 2. So when they came in to start pulling their permits for Phase 2, based on what the code says, they could not build 35 feet in Phase 2 and had requested that to be a variance.
So we granted variances.
And what I hate to say it was turned down, so they did have to remain at the 25 feet in Phase 2. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we did not, we did not grant the variance for the height. Okay. I thought we had.
All right. Anything else to summarize, Ms. Bosworth? Or
Staff recommends approval of this variance. No conditions.
council? Any
Yeah,
deliberation?
I would just say that, understanding the concerns of the HOA, I would say that that is separate from what we're trying to, what we're doing. I don't think that that has any bearing on the decision that we make. I know where the property is, I've seen the property, looked at the property. I believe there are special circumstances here. I think the HOA probably would have standing to deny it based on deed restrictions, and that's up to them. I don't think that has any bearing on what we did do here today.
So, is that true? I mean, if we approve it, then the HOA denies it. I mean, it's out of our control.
Right, but
As part of the process, the variances, if this is approved, staff will sign off on the zoning. It will go through its structural view. I do want to note that the building department does have the homeowner sign an affidavit that they're aware that they're part of an HOA and that they may have
Right.
deed restrictions. So even if we were to issue the pool permit, And the screen enclosure, it is more of a matter between the HOA and the property owner. They can deny
That's
through
right.
their review.
And they've done that before. In fact, I think there was a pool constructed in there that went into a lake. And they built an enclosed pool area that basically built a huge enclosed swimming pool that I'm not sure if it's still standing there, if it's been removed. So we've denied that in the past. But I think that we have, I mean, I understand the HOA's concerns, and I think that they'll have standing in regards to that, but I don't think that that should have a bearing on our decision here today.
Excuse me, may I say something else?
No, sir. All right.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's tough because we can make a decision and then it gets, and you want to think we're doing the right thing because it's for a disabled person, and that's one of the reasons we are supposed to make exceptions and to accommodate. I think it could be a very costly thing if the public pool had to accommodate, and there are federal laws about access. So just as a thought, this might be a cheaper way to go about doing the same thing.
Right. I'd also say that, if there were a neighbor behind, I think there would be a different situation. And the house itself is constructed beyond the rear of the house that's next to it. So I don't see how that would affect the overall aesthetics of the property. So from the standpoint of the city, I would favor going forward and allowing for this variance and then allowing the HOA to deal with it in whatever manner they feel fit.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to allow the variance because, you got a special needs young man and some of the only exercise he gets for his muscles for the cerebral palsy, the best way is in a pool. And if he can't go to the community pool, and it's much easier for him and his family to take him to a pool that's in their house, and they need this requirement to get him in and out of the pool. So I make a motion to approve the variance.
Second.
Any further council discussion?
No, sir.
Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Mayor McPartlin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Coy?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
Good luck, everybody. HOA too. I do understand your point. So good luck.
Good luck. Right. All right, that leads us up to Board of
Item fif-
Adjustment on the Murray residence, Mr. Ginsburg?
Correct, and that residence is at 701 Bay Harbor Terrace. Legal description is Lot 15, Block 244, Sebastian Highlands, Unit 10. The owner is Gary and Maureen Murray. They're requesting a variance from Section 54-2.7.5B1A, Sebastian Land Development Code, to permit an accessory structure, a shed, over 400 square feet in size, 493 square feet, to be 10 feet from the rear property line, whereas the code requires such a structure to be 20 feet from the rear property line for the RS-10 zoning district.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ginsburg. Any council members that need to disclose any ex parte communication?
No, sir.
No? All right, Ms. Williams, will you swear in anybody who's intending to provide testimony on this hearing?
Okay, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representation which you are about to give or present during this public hearing will be truthful and accurate? Thank you.
Right. Mr. Murray, I presume? Yes, sir. All right, do you have a presentation for us, or just if you come up, state your name and your address, please?
My name is Gary Murray. I live at 701 Bay Harbor Terrace in Sebastian, and I thank the council for the time to allow me to request this variance. And I guess the reason for it is I kind of made a mistake, and I already bought the building, and it was for the setback. The size of the building is 20 feet, and that puts it in a really odd position for us, takes away quite a bit of the driveway, and we were planning on maybe getting a boat in the future, and the Florida sun eats it up, so we figured this shed this size would house that properly. And I did speak with my neighbors that would be affected, and they had absolutely no objection. As a matter of fact, they thought it would create more privacy between us and them at the 10-foot setback. The actual footprint of the building, if it was less than 400 square feet, would occupy the same amount of space between the 10 and 20-foot setback area. And all I'm requesting is to go another 5.5 feet farther forward onto the property. And that's really all I have to say, and I would appreciate your consideration on this matter. And if it is not possible to do that, maybe we could make a compromise somewhere in between the 10 and 20-foot setback lines.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Murray? All right, just have a seat, sir. All right, Ms. Bosworth, you have a summary
Thank
for
you.
us?
This is actually a variance for the exact same code that we had just done with the screen enclosure with the pool. It does allow for an encroachment into that rear 20-foot setback as long as the structure is under 400 square feet and it's not over 12 feet in height. Fortunately, the circumstances on this one that staff is recommending denial of this is that the homeowners did do some due diligence previously in September 2015, and we sent them surveys to show exactly where they could fit places on their property where they could put a structure that was over 400 and under 400. That exact same survey did come in with the building permit that had our notes that showed where it could be. So we feel, because of that, we feel that some of the criteria that the board needs to see that they met have not been met. The corner lot is a little bit larger than your standard interior lot. It's 0.36 acres. We feel that we were concise in the information that we gave them so that they were aware of where they could and could not put a larger shed. We were not giving, in their note, in their application, they did note that there's a kitchen window that if they were to comply with this shed and brought it forward to meet the 20-foot setback, that it would be in front of a kitchen window. We didn't have that information. We don't have the floor plan to know exactly how close we could get to this window, so that maybe there is less of a variance that we would need if they could push it forward 3 or 4 feet. Without that floor plan, we couldn't tell, so we couldn't see that this was the minimum variance granted. We do feel that it is closer, that the intent of the code was to keep the larger buildings away from surrounding neighbors, and this would put almost a 500 square foot building closer to those adjacent neighbors to the rear. If during your deliberation, though, you do decide to grant them the variance, we would request that a condition be that it is just for this shed only, and if any time a future owner or if the shed was removed, it wouldn't be for any future sheds, just for this particular shed, if it's so approved, if that could be the condition.
All right. Did we send out notices to the neighbors?
This one actually had about 40 when we did the 300-foot radius. On this one, I did not have any calls or people coming in to look at it or any questions.
All right. Thank you. This time I'll open the floor for anyone in favor of the request. I'll open the floor for anyone opposing this request. Yes. Nothing new, right? Same summary?
At this point, staff is recommending denial of the request, but if it is approved, we recommend approval with the condition that it is accessory structure specific.
All right. Council, any questions for the staff or applicant?
Yeah, I have a quick question. You'd stated that you sent out some surveys that showed where you can place the structures.
Yes.
To your knowledge, was this done prior to the purchase of the shed?
It was sent out September 2015, so that was almost a year ago. I don't have their receipts, but it's been within the last couple of months that the building permit has come in and questioned, so that would probably be a question for the homeowner.
I will ask the homeowner. If I could, Mr. Mayor, I'd like that question to go
Sure.
to the
Mr.
property
Murray,
owner.
if you could come up and answer that question, please.
Yes, sir. They did send me the information, and like I said, I made a mistake.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Don't go away. Mr. Murray, could you, because I'm looking at the picture. Thank you.
Okay.
So Dory, I'm looking at page 248. You have a very long, like, double driveway, is that?
Yes, yes.
And, okay, so as I am looking at your driveway, proposed shed is gonna, you want to put it, help me, Dory.
If you can see, there is you can see the outline of a white fence. They do have a fence that goes around their property.
Yes.
And there is a lot of landscaping back there, so it may be buffered, but the back of the house is 20 feet. That does meet the setback, so it's going to be pushed a little bit closer to that fence in the rear. And I apologize, I should have scaled out and maybe placed it on this aerial.
So where trees are now at the end of the driveway?
I have some pictures that I took today, if you'd like to see them.
I'm just trying to figure out from the aerial. And then I thought I read somewhere that you have an RV
I do.
and you want to buy a boat and a shed and we're putting a lot of stuff.
Actually, the RV is not here, it's out of state, but
Because I remember reading that there was an RV involved, that you didn't want to use your driveway space because you have an RV and then you're going to buy a boat. I've got to remind you that both those wheels have to be parked behind. All of that has to squeeze back in the same place where you're going to be putting your shed.
yeah, I probably will never bring the RV to the house, actually, but
Okay, well, it was something mentioned in here, because I knew you had an RV, and I'm not psychic. I'm just concerned that 20 pounds of potatoes and you got a 10-pound sack.
Now, the fence is yours?
yes.
Okay.
And I believe the fence is right on the property line.
It is.
So
The
the
fence is
back
on
of the
the-
shed would be between the fence and that house. The house is at the 20-foot setback. The fence is on the property line. Right in the middle of that is where the back of the new shed would be.
How high is the fence?
6 feet?
It's a 6-foot.
6-foot fence. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? No?
So we're, you can't put the shed in the front, you can't put the boat in the front of the house, you can't put the RV in front of the house.
We actually got estimates on putting an addition, and it was unbelievably expensive.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll throw it out there. I'll make a motion to grant the variance with the exception that Ms. Bosworth put in, that it would be only for this shed, and if, this got removed, it wouldn't count towards any future. No?
I'd
All
move
right.
denial of the variance request.
Yeah,
For
I have to
discussion.
second that.
All right. Any further council discussion?
Yes, sir. I'll just say, I understand that, mistakes are made, but if you look at if you look at the building itself, this is a tremendous building. This is not your typical shed. It's essentially a garage that's going to be sitting next to the house. Mistakes are made, but, as the applicant has stated that he did check with our building department and was informed essentially that this would not be allowed. I feel for him, however, there are rules that we have in place, and they're here for a reason, and I think that's what helps to create a wonderful place to live. So I'll support the motion.
And I support the motion also. I know someone that was made to move. He's a carpenter. He built his shed, built a gorgeous, gorgeous shed, and it was in the easement, and he had to tear it down and build it properly because he was not. And there just is human error does not justify the waiver, so I have to agree with staff's recommendation.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a quick
Yes,
question?
Mr. Adams.
Just for Dory, where you have the shed in the drawing here, are they able to move the shed closer towards the front of the house to meet the setback requirement?
Yes, he's requesting at 10 to meet the requirement, it'd have to move it 10 foot closer to the road, which I believe that's the crux of the matter. By doing that, then it is going to block a kitchen window that they have on the side of that house. That being said, though, I don't know, without having the exact location of the window, maybe it could come forward 4 or 5 feet and, like you said, compromise, at least so it's not in front of the kitchen window, but I didn't have that information to see exactly how much feet that would be.
Okay.
But
So-
if the variance is denied and he does have to place it where it needs to be, it'll come forward, on this diagram, it'll come forward 10 feet.
All right, so he has the ability to come back to us then? If
If he gets
he
shot
gets-
down tonight, then
yeah.
he could think about coming back and showing you the new plans that you didn't get to see.
He wouldn't need a variance.
I'm going to defer to that on Bob on how that would work. If you deny it, if he would have to come back, unless you can make a motion that, working with staff, that we can come up to only the minimum variance. so it
Right, I
doesn't
thought
block
you
the
had
window.
said something, when you were talking about the kitchen window earlier, you didn't get any...
The floor plan,
The
we just
floor
have,
plan.
yes, we just have the outline of the building, but I don't know exactly where that window is in relation to the placement of the shed.
Okay, because the floor plan potentially change your recommendation one way or another, or you don't know without seeing that?
I think it would depend. If it's only a 2-foot difference, that's still 8 feet, then that may make a difference if they can still push it 7, and then they only needed a 3-foot variance. So, yes, it would make a difference with our recommendation, depending on how much it is.
All right, because I think that was your question, Mr. Adams,
Yes.
right? Correct. So if we deny this one, and can he come back again for a smaller variance?
Part of what he'd have to do in order to come back is to show and convince you that it's a significantly different application for a variance than the one that was just denied. He'll have that burden. You can make that decision based upon the record he presents, but he's going to have to present a record that indicates there's a substantial difference.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ginsburg. Any other questions?
No, that's it.
All right. Roll call, Ms. Williams. This is to deny the variance.
Vice Mayor Adams,
Yes.
Ms. Coy,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
and Mayor McPartlin.
No.
Motion carries.
Right. So we'll adjourn this Board of Adjustment meeting, reconvene as the City Council, and that brings us up to you, Mr. Ginsburg. Any matters for us?
Yes, sir. I'd like to talk for just a second about a recent decision of the Circuit Court in the Ocean Concrete case. As you all know, this case has been started back in 2003 with the consideration and purchase of property next to the City of Sebastian, but in the unincorporated area. The court last month issued a 73-page opinion, which I have here. That's the reason I didn't put it in your agenda kit. But the court denied all the allegations of Ocean Concrete against Indian River County and its decision to change its zoning code to take the concrete plant provisions out of the industrial zoning that was on the property. All I will say with regard to the decision was it's an excellent decision in terms of land use planning and giving discretion to local government and its ability to make decisions like that. There were allegations that the decision to change the Indian River County Land Development Code was arbitrary and capricious, playing to the crowd, acting in collusion with Sebastian, the City of Sebastian, and citizens in Sebastian in opposition. The court said that the decision was actually based on a number of legitimate factors considered by the board. And interestingly enough, in making that decision, the court referred specifically to actions of the City Council, Sebastian City Council. And the court said, the City of Sebastian's resolution in opposition to the project raised issues such as hazardous conditions resulting from inadequate transportation infrastructure and blockage of key road access by deliveries of raw materials by rail, degradation of nearby conservation lands, and quality of life for the adjacent subdivisions due to dust and noise. These are factors on the merits that were included within your resolution in opposition and accepted by the court as part of the evidence that indicated that the decision of the Board of County Commission was based on the merits. And so I wanted to indicate that to you. Decision could be appealed, but this case has been going on for about 7 or 8 years. And I don't know if it'll be litigated further, but at least at this point, there's a pretty extensive opinion in favor of the denial of the concrete batch plant at that location.
The guy doesn't even own the land anymore.
There was foreclosure
Yeah.
years ago. Nevertheless, they've been permitted to proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ginsburg. Mr. Griffin?
Yes, I have 3 items. I had the pleasure of attending a function hosted by the Indian River County Chamber of Commerce last week, and that was for the Industry Appreciation Awards. Our own Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce received one of those awards for the small commercial building renovation nonprofit. I think a special thanks to go and a special recognition to Beth Mitchell, Director of the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce, for spearheading this project, the Pelican Porch project. It's absolutely a great addition to the city and to the chamber, and I congratulate everybody at the chamber for that. The next regular city council meeting is scheduled for 12 October. That is the only meeting in October since we have early voting at the end of October. So 12 October, 15, the only meeting that we have in October. At that meeting, I've been put on notice a request from Indian River County officials that they would like to make another presentation to council about the septic to sewer North County program. They want to update council on that, and I have asked them to please attend and make a presentation, so we're going to plan on that so you can anticipate that.
You know what? Can you ask her maybe to put it on after the election? Because there's going to be a change in members up here, and if they put it on, it was the 12th. There might be 3 new members here in the 1st of November, and I think you would want to present to 5 council members. That's,
That kind of makes sense.
you know, and I mean, because we're not going to vote on anything if they present, so I would rather, you know, that the full body gets the full preview. I mean, does that make sense?
Yes, sir. I'll ask them about that. I know they have a requirement that they wanted to get this out to the municipality, and then so they can make their presentation to their commission, so.
Maybe they shouldn't wait so long the next time to come up here and do the presentation.
I mean, because we're extremely interested, but I think, you know, it would benefit after the election.
I'll run that by them, and I'll report to council by email. The next thing I have is that I had the pleasure of accepting a check today for $3,500 from the Senior Activity Center of Sebastian Incorporated. This represents more than half payment for air conditioning work that we did at the North Annex that the Senior Activity Center occupies. So I want to thank you very much to the Senior Activity Center. Certainly helps out the city, and we appreciate their support. That's all I have.
All right.
My other hat, I'd like to say the seniors have stopped calling me, telling me it's hot in there. Okay, so thank the city.
That's good. All right, Ms. Williams, you have anything?
No, thank you.
All right, Mr. Adams.
I have nothing, thank you.
Ms. Coy.
Yes, just a couple things. I got a phone call today about changes to the, what the city, asking about what the city is doing about the load TMD, what is that, TMDL, what is it? TMDLs. Who is doing that?
That would be Frank. That's our stormwater.
Over there,
Stormwater.
that guy, okay. Ms. Orcutt is trying to get with you on that and would like to discuss that. And I'm a little bit interested too in what our obligations for 2018. This is stuff that we might have to spend money on as far as requirements. And she's really, really up on it. That's one. I also got a call today from Joanne White, who was here talking about Easy Street and looking at what can we do for traffic calming. She lives right there on Easy across from the park. I know I've seen our officers have put the speeding sign down there. I watched a guy, by the way, run. He and his wife were walking down Easy Street, and he ran up on that sign and was doing 29 miles per hour running. It was kind of cool. And then I drove by, and my car didn't register, so I don't know what. But she wanted to know what the status. You know, we were going to look at maybe putting some more stop signs in there. So have we gone forward with any of that or looked at traffic analysis?
I asked Frank, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I asked Frank to come up because I was sure that he had accomplished a traffic study, and in fact he had. And
Oh, good.
Frank?
Yes, Frank Watanabe, the city engineer. We did do a traffic analysis for Easy Street. We looked at both the speeds and traffic as well as school activity. The speeds were not high. They were within the range of a street of that type, 30 miles plus. However, we still are looking at a possibility in the future of an all-way stop at Easy at Lake and also an all-way stop at Easy at Orange. So those are two options we're looking at. That should break up the traffic because it is a long stretch.
Hang on, I'm writing it. Easy Lake and, Easy Orange. That's, and that's with the school, too.
Correct.
There's a lot of school kids
And Orange
there.
is a major cut-through traffic, so that'll kind of break it up.
Okay. All right, thank you. And last but not least, it was brought to my attention, just looking at our consent agenda, we had 2 5Ks on there, and I'm going, we still don't have, there's another unfunded thing we don't have going. But I was talking with the city manager today, and I would like to ask council's permission to pursue some ideas that won't cost us any money. But I would like council's permission to look into doing the 5K out at the golf course. Why am I interested? One, my undergraduate degree is in health and physical education, and while I was in the Army, I was in charge of 14 gyms and 10 pools in South Korea. I did a bazillion 5Ks. I know a little bit about them. So with council's permission, I'd like to work with the city manager in looking at some possibilities. I'd like to see we have the opportunity to do a world class on that property at the golf course. So if it's okay with you all, I'm not going to spend any money, I promise.
As long as you don't ask me to come running, we're good.
I would say I would support that fully, but I was wonder if you had considered looking also at the Stormwater Park, which has some wonderful trails in there and some hills and a lot of different areas where you can get 5K, and there's a lot of parking area out there. So
That's the other issue, is being able to get enough cars. If we got something really good going, it could be a very popular
yeah, I mean, there's
activity.
a lot of parking at that Stormwater Park, a tremendous amount. So I would say take a look at that, and then of course the proximity to Barber Street Sports Complex and the potential for a shuttle there as well.
Yeah.
So there's a tremendous amount of parking, and I think that I have personally ran that property on many occasions, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful run and a great place. So absolutely, the golf course is a great idea, but I would also consider that.
Okay. Any objection, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, no, because I think the golf course is a great venue. I discussed it with Mr. Griffin, because after the race, they could have their great party there at the Eagles Nest. I think that's a great venue to hand out trophies and everything.
I'll
Just
look at
like
the-
they do with the golf tournaments that are out there. They have the lunch afterwards right there.
I mean, I can see big activities wanting to come to a decent facility, so
Sounds good.
I'd like us to do it right, wherever it goes.
Sounds good to me. Mr. Hill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a couple of lots that were cleared on Tulip, and I believe it was Tulip. It was, and I had gotten some concern. I don't know if it was 2 or 4 lots. Was that, Tulip is right. That's right by the Barber Street Sport Complex. Is that where we're staging equipment, and what's the deal with those city lots that were cleared there?
We're doing a stormwater project,
Okay, so we're putting a lake there.
putting a lake in.
Right.
And we're redoing the road.
Okay, yeah.
Down to, which one? Howell, down to Howell.
Yes, thank you. I had a concern of some low-income housing going in there, and I assured them that was not the case, but I would check. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Anything else? No, sir. All right. Well, I guess, one thought came to mind. I like to watch that Channel 25, and I was checking out the Indian River Lagoon Council the other week, and at the end of the meeting, they had public input, and they had the one person who came forward and addressed the Indian River Lagoon Council that Sebastian is shooting glyphosate, whatever, into the thing, and that the Roundup, and then the chairman in the Indian River Lagoon Council, oh, you mean Roundup? And he's like, yes, and he acknowledged that's bad stuff. Could we kind of let them know we are not doing that? I mean, that's, it's kind of scary. I mean, that's a public hearing up there, that we have the Indian River Lagoon Council meeting in Sebastian here. We basically brought them to Sebastian, and somebody goes up and is giving them this misinformation. And the previous meeting, the gentleman addressed us that he wanted to get the support of the Indian River Lagoon Council to make us stop shooting this stuff in that we are not shooting in. So there's just to clarify some of the things.
You said glyphosate, and I made an error I need to correct publicly. At the last meeting, I said there was no glyphosate in Roundup Custom, and I was wrong. There is glyphosate in Roundup Custom. The bad stuff, the really bad stuff, are the inert ingredients that make it stick to the plant. They are not in what we are putting. And oh, by the way, I've talked to the president of the what's his name over there, the lagoon guy.
Oh,
I'm sorry? Oh, I'm at a loss.
He's got glasses, white hair.
Yeah. Oh, but anyway, we've
Wayne
talked.
DeFreeze, sorry.
DeFreeze, right. Thank you.
Can't do it, gentlemen.
And I'll make an effort to stop by and say hello to him again. The individual is well-known.
Right, okay. Well, I'm just, throwing it out there. I was watching a meeting for 3.5 hours, and I saw that at the end, and, I just wanted
But thanks for giving me,
bring it up.
I meant to apologize. Glyphosate is in Roundup and Roundup Custom, and by the way, we're not using even Roundup Custom anymore. We switched to a different kind,
Right.
so.
Then the only other thing I want to bring up is I was at a meeting this morning for the Moonshot Moment, which is basically, Indian River County wants to get 90% of third graders on reading level by the 3rd grade. And they were talking about how important it is and to become a moonshot community. And they may come out and ask some of the local leaders to get involved and advocate on their behalf, because they brought it up and it made a lot of sense to me, because I'm a simple person, is they were talking about, when I grew up and I went to school, basically to get a job, only 2 out of 10 people needed to be on reading level, because there was a lot of jobs available for people who didn't read. Yeah, hey, you'd be surprised. But they're talking about today, 9 out of 10 people need to be on reading level in order to obtain a job, and they're saying it's like 9.3 out of 10 right now in order to obtain a job. The state of Florida is 3 out of 10. Indian River County is 5 out of 10. But we really need to put, emphasis on early learning, which I've always supported, but just trying to back the Moonshot Moment, and it's not costing any money, just to advocate on their behalf, and it's so important and vital for kids to read. One of the things I thought of is, I remember grew up with Riff, reading is fundamental, but now I look at reading, it's vital, it's just as vital as breathing. if you look at it as, in order to, survive and to strive in the future, you need to be able to read at a level. And some of it has to do with a lot of poverty. So they may come out and ask you, I know in the past, several members here on council have done reading Dr. Seuss books and stuff like that. And if, you were asked if you have the time, if you could just go support them. So, all right. Being no further business, this meeting's in adjournment. Good night.